The stars looked different from the bridge of the Liberty Bell. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window and watched the huge space stations floating in the darkness. He had never seen anything like them before. The stations were bigger than Earth's biggest cities, and they glowed with strange colors. "Captain, we're getting close to the meeting point," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her seat at the control panel. Her fingers moved quickly over the buttons as she checked their position. Jake nodded and looked at his crew. There were only 30 humans on the Liberty Bell, but they were good people. He had worked with most of them for years. They came from different places on Earth, but they all shared one thing. They were curious about everything. "Remember, everyone," Jake said, "we're the first humans to join these war games. Let's make a good impression." Sergeant Ben Parker looked up from cleaning one of his flamethrowers. "Define good impression, Captain," Jake smiled. "Let's just try. Not to blow anything up on the first day." "No promises," Ben said with a grin. The Liberty Bell was small compared to the other ships around them. Jake could see the Zephyrian fleet in the distance. Their ships were smooth and white, like giant eggs made of metal. They moved in perfect lines, never breaking formation. Closer to them, the Vortani ships sparkled like diamonds. They were made of some kind of crystal that caught the light from nearby stars. The ships sang to each other with musical sounds that made Jake's teeth hurt. The Krell ships were the strangest. They looked like they were alive, covered in what looked like scales or armor. Jake could see thousands of them moving together like a swarm of angry bees. "Incoming message from the Zephyrian command ship," said communications specialist Kate Murphy. "They want to talk to you, Captain." "Put them on screen," Jake said. The main screen flickered, and a tall alien appeared. The Zephyrian had gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were completely black, and it wore a uniform covered in symbols that hurt to look at. "Human vessel," the alien said in a voice like a computer. "I am Admiral Vex 9 of the Zephyrian Empire. You will follow our lead and stay out of the way during the exercises." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Nice to meet you too. I'm Captain Morrison. We're looking forward to working with everyone." Admiral Vex 9's face showed no emotion. "Your species uses primitive weapons and slow ships. Do not interfere with real military operations." The screen went dark before Jake could respond. "Well, that was rude," said Corporal Lisa Hayes from her position at the weapons controls. "They don't know us yet," Jake said. "Give them time." Private Danny Walsh, who was only 19 and always seemed to be eating something, looked worried. "Captain, what if we're not good enough? These aliens have been fighting in space for hundreds of years." "Danny," Jake said, "remember what happened during the training exercise on Mars?" Danny smiled. "We won by doing things nobody expected." "Exactly. We don't have to be better than them. We just have to be us." The Liberty Bell docked at the main station, and Jake's crew started unloading their equipment. The other species watched them with confusion. While the aliens brought advanced computers and weapon systems, the humans carried camping chairs, a barbecue grill, and several coolers full of food. "Captain Morrison," said a voice like singing crystals. Jake turned to see a Vortani approaching. The alien looked like a walking piece of beautiful blue stone, with light flowing through its body like water. "I am Crystal Song of Victory, strategist for the Vortani fleet. Your equipment confuses us. Are these weapons?" Jake looked at Ben, who was setting up the barbecue grill. "In a way, yes. We find that good food helps us think better." Crystal Song of Victory tilted its head. "You will consume nutrients during combat exercises?" "We'll eat when we're hungry," Jake said. "Would you like to try some Earth food later?" The Vortani made a sound like wind chimes. "This is not logical. Food is for energy replacement, not for pleasure during military operations." Before Jake could answer, the ground shook. A group of Krull soldiers was marching past. They looked like giant ants standing on two legs, with armor that clicked and rattled as they moved. Their leader, who was bigger than the others, stopped in front of Jake. "Human Captain," the Krell said in a voice like grinding rocks, "I am War Leader / Kill Victory. Your pack is small and weak. You will die quickly in the exercises." "Maybe," Jake said calmly, "but we'll have fun trying." War Leader / Kill Victory's head tilted. "Fun? What is fun?" "You know, enjoying yourself. Having a good time." A Krell leader looked at his soldiers, who clicked their mandibles in what might have been confusion. "You expect to enjoy combat. Exercises?" "We enjoy everything," said Amy, who was helping Ben set up the cooking area. "Life's too short to be serious all the time." War Leader / Kill Victory stared at her for a long moment, and walked away without another word. That evening, all the species gathered for the opening ceremony. The station's main hall was huge, with representatives from dozens of different worlds. Jake and his crew sat in a small section near the back, while the other species took up large areas with their formal delegations. Admiral Dex-9 stood at the main podium. The Galactic War Games test military excellence through controlled combat scenarios. Each species will demonstrate their superior tactics and technology. The Zephyrian Admiral talked for 20 minutes about mathematics and energy efficiency. The humans listened politely, but Jake noticed Danny was trying not to fall asleep. Crystal Song of Victory spoke next, and the Vortani delegation created a light show that made beautiful patterns in the air while talking about harmonic coordination and crystal resonance. War Leader / Kill Victory's presentation was shorter and louder. The Krell demonstrated their swarm tactics by having hundreds of soldiers move in perfect synchronization, creating complex patterns that looked like living art. Finally, it was Jake's turn. He stood up and walked to the podium. The huge hall was quiet as thousands of aliens watched him. "The human approach to warfare is simple," Jake said. "We adapt." He paused, looking out at the confused faces staring back at him. "We learn from everything around us. We work together. We find new ways to solve old problems, and we never give up." Jake sat back down. The hall was silent for several seconds. Admiral Dex-9 spoke first. "That was not a presentation of military doctrine." "No," Jake agreed. "It wasn't." "Then what was it?" asked Crystal Song of Victory. Jake smiled. "A promise." As the ceremony ended and the different species began to leave, Jake's crew gathered around their small campfire. Ben had gotten the barbecue working, and the smell of cooking meat filled their corner of the station. "Think they underestimate us?" asked Lisa. "Definitely," said Amy, "which is exactly what we want." Kate was monitoring the alien communications. "Captain, they're all talking about us. They think we're either completely crazy or completely confident." "Good," Jake said, accepting a burger from Ben. "Let them wonder." Private Carlos Rivera, who had been quiet during the ceremony, finally spoke up. "Captain, what's our real plan for tomorrow?" Jake took a bite of his burger and looked at his crew. These were good people, smart people, creative people. They had come from a small planet to compete with species that had been traveling the stars for centuries. They had simple weapons and basic technology, but they had something the others didn't seem to have. "Same plan as always, Carlos," Jake said. "We show up, we do our best, and we see what happens." "And if we lose?" asked Danny. "Then we lose," Jake said, "but we'll lose in the most interesting way possible." The crew laughed, and the sound carried across the station. In the distance, Jake could see some of the alien soldiers looking in their direction, probably wondering what was so funny. Tomorrow would bring the first exercise, and Jake had no idea what to expect. But he knew his crew, and he knew that whatever happened, they would face it together. That was the human way. as the artificial night fell over the station. The humans kept their fire burning, while the other species powered down their equipment and went to sleep. In the morning, the real games would begin. The morning alarm woke Jake at 6 o'clock. He rolled out of his sleeping bag and looked around at his crew. Most of them were already awake, drinking coffee and checking their equipment. The smell of bacon filled the air as Ben worked at his portable cooking station. "First exercise starts in 2 hours," said Amy, reading from her datapad. "It's a fortress assault. We need to capture the enemy stronghold." Jake nodded and accepted a cup of coffee from Kate. "What do we know about this fortress?" "It's built into a big asteroid," said Lisa, pulling up a map on her tablet. "Thick walls, energy shields, automated defenses. The other teams will probably use standard assault tactics." "And we're going to do what exactly?" asked Carlos. Jake smiled. "We're going to take a look around first." 2 hours later, all the teams gathered at the staging area. The fortress was impressive, a massive structure built into the side of an asteroid, with weapon towers and shield generators covering every surface. It looked impossible to attack. Admiral Vex 9 stood before the assembled forces. "The objective is simple. Capture the fortress. You have 4 hours. The team that controls the central command center wins." The Zephyrian forces moved first, forming perfect battle lines. Their energy weapons charged up with a high-pitched whine. The Vortani created a beautiful crystal formation that sparkled. In the artificial light, the Krell gathered into a massive chittering, clicking soldiers ready to charge, and the humans ... scattered. "Where are they going?" asked Crystal Song of Victory, watching the human team split up and head in different directions. "Probably running away," said War Leader /Kill Victory. But Jake had a different plan. While the other teams prepared for a direct assault, he had sent his people to explore. Danny and Carlos went to check out the asteroid's natural caves. Lisa and 3 others started looking at the fortress's support systems. Ben and his demolitions team began what he called artistic reconnaissance. "Control, this is Morrison," Jake said into his radio. "We're beginning our approach." "Copy that, Morrison. Please clarify your tactical formation." Jake looked around. Amy was lying on her back, using binoculars to study the fortress's underside. Kate was sitting cross-legged, listening to radio transmissions. Ben was sketching something in a notebook while eating a sandwich. "Tactical formation is relaxed," Jake said. The Zephyrian assault began with mathematical precision. They advanced in perfect lines, their shields absorbing the fortress's defensive fire. The Vortani attacked from 3 angles, their crystal ships creating harmonic resonance patterns. The Krell swarmed forward like an angry tide. "Captain," Lisa's voice crackled over the radio, "you need to see this." Jake found Lisa at what looked like a maintenance hatch on the asteroid's surface. She was grinning widely. "The fortress has a ventilation system," she said, "but it connects to the natural cave network inside the asteroid. We could probably walk right in." "That sounds like cheating," said Jake. "The rules say we have to capture the fortress," Lisa replied. "They don't say how." Jake looked at the fortress, then at the maintenance hatch. "Lead the way." While the other teams fought the fortress's defenses head-on, half the human team followed. Lisa through the cave system. It was dark and winding, but Lisa had always been good at finding her way through tight spaces. "This is actually pretty cool," said Danny, using his flashlight to look at the cave walls. "Look at these rock formations." "Focus, Danny," said Jake, but he was smiling. Danny's curiosity was one of his best qualities. They emerged inside the fortress through a ventilation grate. The corridors were empty. All the automated defenses were focused on the external assault. "Control, this is Morrison," Jake said quietly. "We're inside the fortress. How did you get inside?" Our sensors show no breach in the defenses. We used the back door, Jake said. Meanwhile, on the surface, Ben was having the time of his life. He had discovered that the fortress's power generators created really impressive explosions when hit with the right kind of charge. "Ben, what are you doing?" asked Amy over the radio. "Art," Ben replied, setting off another controlled explosion. "I'm spelling out hello in the asteroid surface. The aliens watching from orbit are going to love this." "That's not helping us." "Capture the fortress," Amy said. "Sure it is," Ben said. "I'm creating a distraction." He was right. The fortress's automated systems were getting confused by the random explosions. Warning lights flashed, and defensive turrets turned to track threats that kept disappearing. Inside the fortress, Jake's team was making steady progress toward the command center. The corridors were well lit but empty. They passed several security checkpoints, but none of them were active. "This is weird," said Carlos. "Where are all the guards?" "It's a simulation," said Jake. "The fortress probably doesn't have any guards, because it's supposed to be defended by the automated systems." They reached the central command center without seeing a single enemy. Jake looked around the room, filled with blinking lights and computer screens. "So, now what?" asked Lisa. "Good question," Jake said. He walked over to what looked like the main control panel. "Kate, are you picking up any signals from this thing?" Kate's voice came through the radio from outside. "Lots of them, Captain. The fortress is broadcasting status reports every few seconds." Jake studied the control panel. It had buttons and switches, but also what looked like a coffee stain on one corner. He pressed a few buttons experimentally. Nothing happened. "Maybe there's a password?" suggested Danny. "Or maybe," said Jake, "we're overthinking this." He pulled out a small device from his pocket, a universal connector that Amy had designed. It could interface with almost any computer system. Jake plugged it into what looked like a data port. "Amy, can you access the fortress systems from here?" "Working on it, Captain." Amy's voice came through the radio. "Their security is actually pretty basic." "Okay, I'm in." The command center's lights changed from red to green. A computer voice announced, "Fortress control transferred to new operators." "Control, this is Morrison," Jake said. "We have captured the fortress." There was a long pause. "Repeat that, Morrison." "We have captured the fortress. The command center is under human control." Outside, the other teams were still fighting the fortress's defenses. The Zephyrians had managed to destroy 2 weapon towers. The Vortani had penetrated the outer shield. The Krell had suffered heavy casualties, but were still advancing. And then all the fortress's weapons stopped firing. "What happened?" demanded Admiral Vex 9. "The humans captured the command center," said the control voice. War Leader /Kill Victory's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Impossible. We have been monitoring the fortress. No human forces approached the main entrance." "They used an alternate route," said Control. "What alternate route?" asked Crystal Song of Victory. Jake's voice came over the general communication channel. "The maintenance tunnels. Also, there's a really nice cave system in this asteroid. You should check it out sometime." Admiral Vex 9 was not amused. "This is not proper military tactics." "Worked, though," said Ben, admiring his explosive artwork on the asteroid's surface. The exercise officially ended, with the humans controlling the fortress. Jake's team gathered in the command center, where Danny had found what appeared to be a break room with a coffee machine. "Not bad for our first day," said Amy. "The other teams look confused," observed Kate, monitoring their communications. "They're trying to figure out how we did it," said Lisa. "The Zephyrians are running probability calculations. The Vortani are analyzing harmonic disruption patterns. The Krell are arguing about whether we cheated." Jake looked around at his team. They were relaxed, confident, and having fun. This was what he loved about working with humans. They could find opportunity in any situation. "Did we cheat?" asked Carlos. "We followed the rules," said Jake. "We just didn't follow them the same way everyone else did." "Captain," said Danny, "the coffee machine in here makes really good coffee. Want some?" "Sure," said Jake Dot as they sat in the conquered fortress, drinking coffee and eating the sandwiches Ben had packed. Jake listened to the radio chatter from the other teams. They were analyzing what had gone wrong, discussing tactical modifications, and trying to understand how the humans had succeeded. "They're going to be more careful tomorrow," said Amy. "Good," said Jake. "It'll be more fun that way." Outside, the fortress's automated systems had shut down completely. The other teams were packing up their equipment and preparing to return to the main station. Jake could see them through the command center's windows, and they all looked frustrated. "Control, this is Morrison," Jake said. "We're ready to head back." "Copy that, Morrison." "How did you locate the maintenance tunnels?" "We looked for them," Jake said. "It's a fortress built into an asteroid. Asteroids have natural cave systems. Fortresses need maintenance access. We put 2 and 2 together." "And the explosions on the surface?" Jake looked at Ben, who was carefully packing his equipment. Ben thought the power generators looked lonely. He decided to keep them company. "That's not a recognized tactical doctrine," said Control. "It is now," said Jake Dot, as the human team prepared to leave the fortress. Jake took one last look around the command center. It was an impressive facility, well designed and well built. But it had been designed to stop conventional attacks, not to stop people who were willing to crawl through caves and blow things up for fun. Jake woke up to the sound of laughter. He opened his eyes and saw Ben showing Danny something on his tablet, while Amy and Kate giggled nearby. Whatever they were looking at had them in a really good mood. "What's so funny?" Jake asked, sitting up in his sleeping bag. "The aliens are talking about us," said Kate, wiping tears from her eyes. Ben recorded some of their communications from yesterday. She played the recording. Admiral Vex-9's voice filled the air. The humans used what they call aggressive sightseeing to infiltrate the fortress. This tactical approach is not in any of our military databases. More voices followed. Crystal Song of Victory sounded confused. They treated the exercise like a recreational activity. One of them was observed making s'mores with a flamethrower inside the fortress. War Leader /Kill Victory's voice was the loudest. Human Captain. Morrison described their strategy as having fun. "This concept requires further analysis." "They're trying to figure us out," said Amy. "Good luck with that," said Ben, packing his equipment for the day. Jake stood up and stretched. Through the window, he could see the second exercise area, a massive space station surrounded by smaller platforms and asteroids. Ships from all 4 species were already moving into position. "What's today's challenge?" he asked. Lisa pulled up the mission briefing on her tablet. "Space battle simulation. We have to capture and hold that central station. It's heavily defended and surrounded by automated weapon platforms." "Standard orbital assault?" asked Carlos. "That's what the other teams will probably try," said Lisa. "The Zephyrians will use their shield formations. The Vortani will coordinate crystal harmony attacks. The Krell will try to overwhelm the defenses with numbers." Jake looked at the tactical display. The space station was impressive, large, well-armed, and positioned in the center of a defensive grid that would make any direct attack very costly. "Amy, what do the rules say exactly?" he asked. Amy read from her tablet. "Capture and hold the central station. Team that controls the station's main computer core wins." "It says capture," said Jake slowly, "but it doesn't define what capture means. What are you thinking, Captain?" asked Kate. Jake was quiet for a moment, studying the mission parameters. Then he smiled. I'm thinking we need to redefine success." 2 hours later, the 4 fleets were in position around the target zone. Jake watched from the Liberty Bell's bridge as the other species prepared for battle. The Zephyrian ships formed geometric attack patterns. The Vortani vessels created a rainbow of crystal formations. The Krell swarmed like angry insects. "All teams, you may begin," announced the exercise controller. The Zephyrians attacked first, their energy weapons lighting up space as they advanced on the station. The automated defenses responded with a wall of return fire. The Vortani came from 3 directions, their ships singing in harmony as they tried to overwhelm the station's sensors. The Krell simply charged straight ahead, accepting heavy losses. To get close to their target, and the humans started broadcasting on all frequencies. "Attention space station," said Kate into her microphone. "This is the Earthship Liberty Bell. We'd like to speak with someone about your extended warranty." Jake had to cover his mouth to keep from laughing out loud. This had been Kate's idea, and it was brilliant. The station's automated systems responded. "Unknown vessel, state your intentions." "We're here to deliver pizza," said Kate cheerfully. "Extra cheese, pepperoni, and a side of peace negotiations." There was a long pause. "This station is not equipped to process food delivery requests." "Oh, that's too bad," said Kate. "We came all this way. Maybe we could just come aboard and explain the situation?" While Kate kept the station's AI confused with her increasingly. Ridiculous conversation. Amy was working at her computer station. "I'm analyzing their communication protocols," Amy whispered to Jake. "The AI is designed to handle military threats and formal negotiations. It has no idea how to deal with casual conversation." "Keep it busy," Jake said. Ben had launched himself in a maintenance pod toward the station. His mission was simple: get close enough to knock on the airlock. "Control, this is Sergeant Parker." Ben's voice came over the radio. "I'm approaching the station's main docking bay." "Parker, what's your tactical status?" asked the exercise controller. "I'm delivering pizza," Ben said, "and possibly some party supplies." Jake watched the tactical display as the other teams continued their attacks. The Zephyrians had managed to destroy 2 defensive platforms, but were taking heavy damage. The Vortani were trying to harmonize the station's defensive frequencies. The Krell were throwing ship after ship at the defenses. None of them noticed. The small maintenance pod drifting toward the station's service entrance. "Station AI, this is pizza delivery," Ben announced as he reached the airlock. "I've got 1 large pepperoni, 1 vegetarian, and a case of soda." "This station does not consume organic matter," the AI replied. "Everyone has to eat," Ben said reasonably. "Even space stations need to keep their crew happy. This station has no biological crew." "Well, that's your first problem right there," Ben said. "No wonder you're so grumpy. Come on, let me in. I'll explain everything." Jake was amazed when the airlock actually opened. The AI, programmed to handle threats and formal procedures, apparently had no protocol for refusing pizza delivery. "Ben's inside the station," reported Amy. "Phase 2, said Jake. "Lisa, you're up." Lisa launched in another pod, this one carrying what looked like party decorations and a small barbecue grill. "On my way, Captain." Within minutes, more human team members were requesting permission to dock. Danny said he was delivering birthday cake. Carlos claimed to be a maintenance technician responding to a work order. Private Kelly Johnson said she was there to fix the air conditioning. The station's AI was getting more confused by the minute. It kept asking for clarification from the exercise controllers, who were equally baffled. "All teams, please clarify your tactical approach," announced the controller. Admiral Vex-9 responded first. "Zephyrian forces are executing standard orbital assault protocols." Crystal Song of Victory was next. "Vortani fleet is implementing harmonic disruption patterns. War Leader /Kill Victory's reply was brief. Krell forces advance and destroy. Finally, it was Jake's turn. Human forces are ... hosting a party. Repeat. That, Morrison. We're throwing a party, Jake said. Everyone's invited. By now, most of Jake's team was inside the station. Ben had set up the barbecue in what appeared to be the main corridor. Lisa was hanging party decorations from the ceiling. Danny had found the station's communication system and was playing Earth music throughout the facility. Control, we have a problem, the station's AI announced. The humans are not following combat protocols. They are engaging in what appears to be a social gathering. Are they threatening the station? Asked the controller. No. They are offering food and asking about our favorite music. Jake could hear the confusion in the controller's voice. What? Attention all ships, Jake announced on the general frequency. The first annual Nexus System Friendship Party is now underway aboard the Central Station. All species welcome. We have food, music, and fascinating stories about Earth. The effect was immediate. Several Krell fighters broke off from their attack, apparently curious about Earth food. A few Vortani ships stopped singing and started broadcasting questions about human music. Even some Zephyrian vessels slowed their advance. This is highly irregular, announced Admiral Vex 9. But it smells really good, said one of the Krell. Pilots. I am detecting harmonic patterns in the human music that are quite pleasant, admitted a Vortani crystal-singer. Jake made his decision. Kate, open a channel to all ships. Channel open, Captain. Attention, everyone, Jake said. We know this is supposed to be a military exercise, but we've been thinking, what if instead of fighting over this station, we turned it into something better? A place where different species can meet, share food, and learn about each other? That is not the objective of this exercise, said Admiral Vex 9. The objective is to capture the station, Jake replied. We're not capturing it by force. We're capturing it with friendship. Inside the station, Ben's party was growing. Several alien crew members from the monitoring ships had requested permission to come aboard. The station's AI, still confused, but no longer hostile, was asking questions about human culture. Ben, status report, Jake requested. Captain, we've got Krell, Vortani, and even a few Zephyrians down here, Ben replied. They're all trying the barbecue. The Krell really like the spicy sauce. Any problems? Just one. We're running out of food. These aliens can really eat. Jake looked at the tactical display. The formal battle had essentially stopped. Most of the ships were now holding position, while their crews listened to the party reports. Amy, can you access the station's main computer? All ready. Did, Captain, Amy said with a grin. About 10 minutes ago, while everyone was distracted by the party. According to the mission parameters, we now control the central station. Control, this is Morrison, Jake announced. Human forces have successfully captured the space station. How? Asked the controller. We made friends with it, Jake said. There was a long pause before Admiral Vex 9 responded. This is not proper military doctrine. No, Jake agreed, but it worked. The party continued for another hour. Jake watched from the Liberty Bell as ships from all 4S. Jake opened his eyes to find Ben sitting nearby, reading something on his tablet and chuckling quietly. The artificial morning light was just starting to brighten their sleeping area. What's so funny this early? Jake asked, stretching. The aliens held a meeting about us last night, Ben said, showing Jake his tablet. Kate recorded their communications. They're calling us tactically unpredictable and psychologically disruptive. Jake sat up and looked at the recording transcript. Admiral Vex 9 had said, human behavior does not follow logical patterns. They treat military exercises like social events. Crystal Song of Victory had added, Their approach to conquest through friendship is not documented in any strategic database. War Leader/Kill Victory's comment was the most interesting. Human food is surprisingly effective at reducing aggressive instincts in my warriors. They're trying to understand us, Jake said. Good luck with that, said Amy, who was already awake and checking her equipment. I don't understand us half the time. Kate looked up from her communication station. Captain, today's exercise is different. It's called psychological endurance training. We have to navigate through a facility designed to test mental toughness. What kind of facility? Jake asked. According to the briefing, it's full of holographic challenges, stress scenarios, and fear simulations. The goal is to reach the center while maintaining unit cohesion under psychological pressure. Jake nodded. How do the other species usually handle this? The Zephyrians use meditation and mental discipline, Kate read from her notes. The Vortani synchronize their mental harmonics. The Krell rely on their collective consciousness to share the psychological burden. And we're going to do what? Asked Danny. Jake thought for a moment. We're going to be ourselves. An hour later, all four teams stood outside the psychological testing facility. It was a dark, imposing building that seemed to absorb light. Strange sounds echoed from inside, and the air around it felt heavy and oppressive. This facility will test your ability to function under extreme psychological stress, announced the exercise controller. You must reach the central chamber while your team remains intact. Any team member who becomes incapacitated by the psychological effects will be removed from the exercise. The other teams prepared in their traditional ways. The Zephyrians stood in perfect formation, their eyes closed in meditation. The Vortani created a circle and began humming in harmony. The Krell gathered close together, their mandibles clicking. In a rhythmic pattern, the humans stood in a loose group, eating breakfast and making jokes. Remember, Jake told his team, whatever we see in there, it's not real. It's just holograms designed to scare us. What if it's really scary? Asked Danny. Then we'll be scared together, Jake said. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. The trick is not letting fear control you. And if we see something really weird? Asked Carlos. Then we'll figure it out together, Jake replied. That's what we do. The doors opened, and all four teams entered the facility. Inside, the corridors were dark and filled with shifting shadows. The walls seemed to move, and whispers echoed from unseen sources. The teams quickly separated, each following their own path through the maze-like structure. Jake could hear the other species on the radio, using formal military communications and reporting their status in clipped, professional tones. The humans, on the other hand, sounded like they were on a nature hike. Oh wow, look at that, said Lisa, as they encountered their first holographic challenge, a corridor that appeared to be filled with fire. That's really well done. The heat simulation is amazing. It's like a haunted house, said Danny, but with better special effects. Instead of being frightened by the fire, the humans were fascinated by the technology. Amy started analyzing the holographic projection system while Ben wondered aloud if he could recreate similar effects with his flamethrowers. Team, focus. Jake said, but he was smiling. We need to get through this corridor. Easy, said Ben. It's just a hologram. Watch. He walked straight through the flames, which flickered around him harmlessly. The next challenge was a room that seemed to be filling with water. The other teams would probably see this as a drowning scenario designed to induce panic. The humans saw it differently. Virtual reality swimming pool, said Carlos. Cool. Lisa started doing the backstroke through the holographic water. The physics simulation is pretty good, but they got the water density wrong. How can you tell? Asked Kate. I used to be a lifeguard, Lisa replied. Trust me, this isn't how water behaves. As they progressed deeper into the facility, the psychological challenges became more intense. They encountered rooms filled with illusions of spiders, snakes, and other common fears. The humans treated each one like a learning experience. "Fascinating," said Amy, watching holographic spiders crawl across the walls. "The animation is really detailed. I wonder how they programmed the movement patterns." "Amy," said Jake, "you're not supposed to be analyzing them. You're supposed to be afraid of them." "Why would I be afraid of fake spiders?" Amy asked. "They're not real." Then he encountered a scenario that seemed designed to trigger claustrophobia. A narrow tunnel that appeared to be closing in. Instead of panicking, he started narrating like he was hosting a nature documentary. "Here we see the rare and elusive psychological pressure tunnel in its natural habitat," Danny said in a dramatic voice. "Notice how it tries to create anxiety through the illusion of confined space." The other team members started laughing despite the creepy atmosphere. "Danny, you're ruining the scary mood," said Carlos. "Good," Danny replied. "Scary moods are overrated." Meanwhile, the other species were having a much harder time. Jake could hear their radio communications becoming more strained as they encountered challenges designed to exploit their specific psychological weaknesses. The Zephyrians were struggling with scenarios that disrupted their logical thinking. The Vortani were being separated by illusions that broke their harmonic connections. The Krell were facing challenges that isolated them from their collective consciousness. But the humans were having what could only be described as a group bonding experience. "Captain," said Kate, "I'm picking up some interesting readings from the facility's control systems." "What kind of readings?" Jake asked. "The psychological stress monitoring equipment is showing anomalous results for our team," Kate explained. "Instead of increasing stress levels, our readings are actually going down." "That's because we're not stressed," said Ben. "This is actually kind of fun." They reached a chamber filled with mirrors that showed distorted reflections designed to create anxiety about self-image. The humans started making funny faces and taking pictures of themselves with the weird reflections. "Lisa, you look like a funhouse mirror," laughed Amy. "Check this out," Lisa said, posing dramatically. "I'm an abstract art piece." The next challenge was supposed to induce fear through isolation. Each team member was separated into individual rooms with no communication. For most species, this would be terrifying. Jake found himself alone in a dark room with whispers echoing around him. The voices were saying things designed to make him doubt himself and his mission. "You don't belong here," the voices whispered. "You're not good enough. You'll fail your crew." Jake sat down in the middle of the room and pulled out a sandwich from his pack. "You know," he said aloud, "if you're going to try psychological warfare, you should probably research your target first." The whispers paused, apparently not programmed for this response. "I've been leading teams for 15 years, Jake continued, taking a bite of his sandwich. "I've heard every doubt, every fear, every criticism. The difference is, I've learned that those voices are usually wrong." He stood up and walked toward what he hoped was the exit. "Besides, my crew is counting on me. That's more important than whatever you're trying to make me feel." In the other rooms, his team members were having similar experiences. Ben was explaining to his holographic fears why they were scientifically impossible. Amy was trying to reverse engineer the psychological manipulation techniques. Danny was treating the whole thing like a puzzle to solve. When they reunited in the central chamber, they found they were the first team to arrive. The room was filled with monitoring equipment and several very confused-looking technicians. "How did you get here so fast?" asked one of the monitors. "We walked," said Jake. "It wasn't that complicated." But the psychological challenges, the stress scenarios, the fear simulations. "Oh, those were interesting," said Amy. "Really impressive technology. But they're just holograms. They're designed to exploit deep psychological fears, the monitor explained. Sure, said Ben, but they're still not real. And we're not going through this alone. We've got each other. The monitor looked at his instruments in confusion. Your stress levels are lower now than when you entered the facility. That makes sense, said Lisa. We spent the last 2 hours solving puzzles and learning about each other. It was like team building. The other species began arriving at the central chamber over the next hour. The Zephyrians looked shaken, but maintained their composure. The Vortani had lost their harmonic synchronization and seemed disoriented. The Krell were clicking anxiously and staying close together. Admiral Vex-9 stared at the humans, who were sitting in a circle playing cards while they waited. How are you? Jake woke up to find his sleeping area surrounded by aliens. For a moment, he thought something was wrong, but then he realized they were all sitting quietly, watching Ben cook breakfast. Morning, Captain, said Ben cheerfully, flipping what looked like pancakes on his portable grill. We've got some visitors who wanted to try Earth breakfast food. A young Krell warrior was sitting cross-legged nearby, carefully mimicking Ben's cooking technique with a smaller cooking device. 2 Vortani were humming softly while watching the pancakes cook, apparently fascinated by the chemical reactions. Even a few Zephyrian technicians were taking notes. This is normal now? Jake asked Amy, who was showing a Vortani engineer her. Demolition equipment. It started about an hour ago, Amy said. They just kept showing up, asking questions about human culture and technology. Jake looked around at the peaceful scene. Aliens and humans were sharing food, comparing equipment, and having what appeared to be genuine conversations. It was nothing like the formal, competitive atmosphere from their first day. Captain Morrison, said a familiar voice. Jake turned to see Crystal's Song of Victory approaching, her crystalline form glowing softly in the morning light. Good morning, Jake, said. Would you like some breakfast? I do not consume organic matter, she replied, but I would like to observe the social bonding ritual you call breakfast. It's not really a ritual, Jake said. We just like eating together. It helps us start the day, right? Fascinating. Crystal's Song of Victory said. The Vortani coordinate through harmonic resonance, but you coordinate through shared experiences. Kate looked up from her communication station. Captain, we've got the briefing for today's final exercise. Jake accepted the data tablet from Kate and read through the mission parameters. This was the big one, a combined arms exercise where all 4 species had to work together to defend against a simulated invasion. Says here we're facing an overwhelming enemy force, Jake said. We have to coordinate our different fleets and ground forces to protect a group of civilian stations. How overwhelming? Asked Lisa. The simulation is designed to be unwinnable, Jake read. The goal is to test how well different species can cooperate under extreme pressure, even when facing certain defeat. Admiral Vex-9's voice came over the communication system. All team leaders report to the main briefing room in 30 minutes. Jake looked at his crew, who were still sharing breakfast with their alien visitors. Well, team, looks like we get to see if friendship can work on a larger scale. The briefing room was enormous, with representatives from all 4 species gathered around a massive holographic display. The simulated enemy fleet was impressive. Thousands of ships advancing on a cluster of civilian stations that housed millions of inhabitants. The scenario is simple, announced the exercise controller. The enemy force will arrive in 6 hours. You must coordinate your fleets and ground forces to mount the best defense possible. Your performance will be evaluated on tactical cooperation, resource management, and civilian evacuation efficiency. Admiral Vex-9 immediately began outlining a complex battle plan involving mathematical formations and precise timing. Crystal's Song of Victory proposed a harmonic coordination system that would synchronize all the fleets. War leader / kill victory. Wanted to organize immediate frontal assaults. Within minutes, the three alien leaders were arguing about command structure, tactical priorities, and resource allocation. Their voices grew louder as each insisted their approach was superior. Jake listened to the debate for a few minutes, then stood up and walked to the coffee machine in the corner of the room. "Captain Morrison," said the exercise controller, "what is the human tactical recommendation?" Jake poured himself a cup of coffee and looked at the arguing aliens. "I recommend we stop arguing and start talking." "That is not a tactical recommendation," said Admiral Vex-9. "Sure it is," Jake said. "The most important tactic in any joint operation is making sure everyone can work together." He walked back to the holographic display. "Look at this enemy fleet. It's huge. We can't beat it with traditional tactics, no matter how well we coordinate." "Then, what do you suggest?" asked Crystal-Song-of-Victory. Jake smiled. "I suggest we figure out what each species does best, and then find ways to help each other do it even better." War leader / kill victory's mandibles clicked skeptically. "You propose abandoning military hierarchy?" "I propose using military cooperation," Jake said. "There's a difference." He turned to Ben, who was setting up his cooking equipment in the briefing room. "Ben, what did you learn from cooking with our alien friends this morning?" "Well," Ben said thoughtfully, "the Krell have amazing reflexes for flipping pancakes. The Vortani can create perfect harmonics for timing. And the Zephyrians are really good at calculating exact temperatures." "So what happened when you cooked together?" "We made the best pancakes any of us had ever tasted," Ben said with a grin. Jake turned back to the alien leaders. "That's what I'm talking about. Not command hierarchy. Not following orders. Cooperation." Admiral Vex-9 looked confused. "You are comparing military tactics to cooking?" "I'm comparing teamwork to teamwork," Jake said. "The principles are the same." Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. Instead of trying to integrate the human approach into the alien military systems, Jake began introducing the aliens to human-style cooperation. Danny started teaching young Krell warriors card games during the planning breaks. Lisa began sharing demolition techniques with Vortani engineers. Amy showed Zephyrian technicians how to jury-rig equipment for unexpected situations. Most importantly, Ben kept cooking. The smell of food filled the briefing room, and soon aliens were taking breaks from planning to eat together and share stories about their homeworlds. "This is highly irregular," Admiral Vex-9 observed, watching his officers play poker with human crew members. "But look at what's happening," Jake said, pointing to the tactical displays. The different species were no longer working on separate plans. They were combining their ideas, sharing resources, and building something new together. A Krell warrior suggested using Zephyrian shield technology to protect Vortani crystal formations. A Vortani engineer proposed harmonizing Krell swarm tactics with human adaptive strategies. Zephyrian mathematicians began calculating probability matrices that included human unpredictability as a tactical advantage. "They're not following their traditional doctrines," observed Crystal-Song-of-Victory. "No," Jake agreed. "They're creating new ones." When the simulation began, Jake watched from the Liberty Bell's bridge as something unprecedented unfolded. The combined fleet moved like nothing he had ever seen. Zephyrian precision enhanced by human creativity, Vortani harmony amplified by Krell determination, and all of it coordinated through the kind of flexible cooperation the humans took for granted. The Krell warriors, inspired by human adaptability, abandoned their rigid swarm patterns in favor of creative tactics. Vortani engineers, influenced by human humor, began creating beautiful but deadly artistic formations with their crystal technology. Zephyrian commanders, learning from human flexibility, threw out their mathematical models and started making decisions based on intuition and teamwork. "Captain," said Amy, monitoring the tactical displays, "the simulation AI is requesting technical support." "What kind of technical support?" Jake asked. "It says the defending forces are performing outside expected parameters. The enemy fleet was supposed to break through the defenses within 2 hours." Jake looked at the main display. The simulated invasion force was being systematically dismantled by a defense that fought like no military force in galactic history. It was creative, adaptive, and utterly unpredictable. "How long has the battle been going?" Jake asked. 4 hours, said Kate. "The enemy fleet is down to 30% strength. And our casualties? Minimal. The combined tactics are working better than anyone predicted." On the communication channels, Jake could hear the voices of aliens who sounded completely different from the formal military officers he had met a few days ago. They were joking with each other, sharing ideas, and supporting teammates from other species like they had been working together for years. "Control, this is Admiral Vex 9, came a voice over the radio. "The enemy fleet has been completely defeated." There was a long pause from the exercise controller. "Repeat that, Admiral." "The simulated invasion has been repelled. All civilian stations are secure. Enemy forces are in full retreat. But the simulation was designed to be unwinnable." "Apparently," said Crystal Song of Victory, "you did not account for the tactical advantages of friendship." Jake leaned back in his captain's chair and smiled. Through the main window, he could see the aftermath of the battle. Ships from all 4 species were working together to rescue simulated survivors and repair damaged stations. Krell warriors were sharing rations with Zephyrian technicians. Vortani engineers were teaching human crew members to sing harmony while they worked. "Captain," said Ben over the radio, "I'm getting requests from 17 different ships asking for the recipe for victory celebration cake." "Victory celebration cake?" Jake asked. "I may have promised to bake a cake if we won," Ben admitted. Jake laughed. "Then you better get started. Sounds like we're having a party." As the exercise officially ended, Jake received a message from the Coalition H.